The number one question about the Avs I've been asked in the year 2025 is should the Avs trade Casey Mittelstadt? And of course, everyone wants a yes or no answer to that question, but it's not quite that simple, is it? E, what are we thinking? Should Casey Mittelstadt be on the block? Is it only for something that makes sense? Should the Avs actively look to move him? Where are we at?
Well, here's my take on it. I like that. I can't shy away from what I've been saying on our pods or our post game pods, and I like Casey. I like the acquisition last year. I like the deal last year. I liked his performance in the playoffs. I thought he adapted really well. I was pleasantly surprised for a guy that never played in the playoffs. And then this year, it's been an up and down year. We all know that. He's had some good spurts, especially at the start. We thought that guys coming back in the lineup, would have helped him with that second line. I'm talking about Natushkin and all that kind of stuff. So when they came back, he was better without them in my book, right? I mean, if we
True.
look at
Yeah.
the start of the season, yeah, I mean, I think numbers will show that. Um, I think it's been an up and down year. It's a long year when you've never been on a cup contender team for a full year. Came in at last year. It's adrenaline. It's the trade deadline, and then it's playoffs starting. Long year. You got to play a certain way. You got to present a certain way every day. I'm not saying he's lazy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that he has not done it before. Where all of a sudden this is the first time he's doing it. He's going through it right now. We thought he'd get out of it the other day, maybe a few games ago. And then I went back to, and you can tell. And I'm not blaming Jared Bednar. He's 4-1 in his last 5 games as a team, but Casey's ice time has not really been the greatest. I tell you all the time, if you don't get the great ice, meaning first power play, and again, we all know it's non-existent second power play with the Avalanche because they basically stay the full 2 minutes. So, as a guy that's supposed to get point production, that's where I think he's lacking a little bit from the prediction of what he was going to be. That little
True.
thing he's missing, right? From 50 to
It,
60, whatever.
it's
It's
not as
right
bad as
there.
people make it seem, right? He's probably on pace for about 50 points, but
Yeah, you'd like him to be at 65, 70. And again,
yeah.
forget about Nazem Kadri. It doesn't exist. Nazem Kadri, it was not normal. You know what I mean? It just wasn't. Uh,
Right.
I mean, I know people keep going back to that. It's not feasible anymore. We saw Miko being traded last week because it's not feasible. So, with Casey, my answer to you quickly is I I like unless you're going to get this is the dummy answer, but unless you're going to get something that makes it better, then you got to move on from them. In my book, I don't think you can go get another KC Middlestat and then all of a sudden say, "Oh, let's throw him to the third line." It's not the math's not going to add up. Ice time's not going to add up. Then I wouldn't do that. I think if you go get a second line center, you got to move on from him. That's just my thought, and go from there. And obviously, you'll get an asset back. I mean, this is a good player.
So look, I agree. If there's a player better out there and the price is Casey Middlestat, you make your team better. That's what NHL teams do. If you're trying to win,
That's
that's
right.
what you do. I totally understand that side of it. Where I would argue that they should not trade Middlestat, though, is if you do that, yes, okay, you directly improved on Casey Middlestat. Fine. Your second line has a better center. You still need more centers. The
Yeah.
Avs essentially have no bottom six centers. They're playing dudes that aren't center at center and just hoping for the best. I guess Jack Drury has filled in a little bit in that role and he's been solid there, but they still need another center, especially if you realistically see Jack Drury as your 4C. You realistically need another middle six center. So if you go out and get one of those and you have Casey, I do think you solve that problem a little bit more than if you just go out and replace Casey with something better. Which again, if you get
Yeah.
better, fine. I'm fine with the trade, but keep in mind if you're moving Casey out for another center, you're not actually filling that hole. You're just improving on a position that you already had a center on. The other side of this, and I'm not saying you shouldn't trade him because of this, but it's something to keep in mind. You talked about Bednar's not playing him a lot of minutes right now. You talk about his performance is maybe a little bit under what we expected. You'd be selling low on him. You're probably
Yep.
not going to get value for him right now because of the season that he's had and where his play is at. Now, again, sometimes that's the reality of the business. You have to sell a guy low because that's your best opportunity. But you are if you aren't willing to stick it out with him, I don't know that you'll get full value. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, and to your point, I think if we're using names to plug in holes on what you're saying right there. So you're saying if you are moving on from them, you get Ryan O'Reilly. I'm not telling you that they're traded for each other. I'm saying somehow Ryan O'Reilly gets into your lineup. He slots into the second C center.
Yep.
You got to get rid of Casey Mittelstadt. But I agree with you. Now you're down to, again, all you have is Jack Drury. So you're down to, the same problem that you have. You're trying to add more. Now, if you're going to get Jake Evans, for example, lower salaried guy, that's your third line guy or what, fourth line guy, whatever it is, Jury, interchangeable, and then Casey stays there, in my book, and you go from there. But math has to work if it's an O'Reilly guy that's got a bigger salary than a Jake Evans, and then it's also a question of ice time and what can you go get, for Casey. Again, hypothetical, but I think we're talking the same page you and I. If you're going to get a more prominent, second line guy, then you have to move on from him because there's no need to just keep on. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? And again, that's the GM job. That's the GM's job. That's the front office job to figure out. And every day Chris gets up and Joe and everyone and the scouting staff around the world, how can we make our team better? Casey Mittelstadt, no different than, anybody else. You know what I mean? How can we go somebody better than Logan O'Connor, for example? If the answer is yes, then, somebody gives you, Sam Reinhart for Logan O'Connor. As much as we love Logan O'Connor, of course.
Bye, buddy. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. So again, we're not, but that's the job and that's a tough job to see. But just to throw stuff out there, like a lot of people are saying, oh, trade Casey. You know what I mean? Like, hold on a second. Like he's not that bad. He's actually pretty good. You know what I mean? But I understand the frustration. We can see it, and it's called inconsistency a little bit. And he's fallen into that trap. But again, the spin guys, you know what I mean? Like, when is it that you move on from guys? Look at Newhook, you know what I mean? Like, oh, maybe they got rid of him too quick, and then he goes to Montreal, was doing pretty good. Now, not doing too good in Montreal. I mean, I you know what I mean? So, and then sometimes it goes the other way, right? You move on from someone, then they go and pop off somewhere else, and that's the nature of the beast, right? That's the beauty of our business. It's crazy, and you'll never know. But just to say, like, oh, trade Casey, I wouldn't do that. I like Casey. And again, I'm one of the guys that defends him a lot of times. But, I understand if there's something that makes sense and makes your lineup deeper and you have to move on from him, so be it,
Yeah, and on that last thought, it is worth keeping in mind Casey Mittelstadt has 2 more years on his deal after this. So if you are trading him, for someone like Ryan O'Reilly, there's some term there too. You've locked up that spot for a handful of years. However, if you're looking to move him for someone like a Brock Nelson, you have to understand that you're buying a rental there. You're shortening your timeline. And we've seen already this year the Avs moved Mikko Rantanen for Natchez to maybe extend a timeline a little bit because they weren't confident they could get him signed. So, yes, they are trying to win now, but now means over the next 3 or 4 years, not necessarily just this season. So, we'll see. Unfortunately, the answer to should the Avs trade Casey Mittelstadt is a solid maybe depending on the situation. That's the best answer we can give, and you're just going to have to live with that.
That's right.
It is what it is. We'll see what happens come trade deadline, but that's it for this one.